How's it going, everyone? This is Cloud Chief, and in today's video I wanted to talk about haste and attack speed. So not just the spell haste, but talking about haste overall and capping your attack speed for the most part. So before we really jump into the meat and potatoes, I kind of want to get a full breakdown of exactly how haste works and what exactly it is and what are the different caps, because there are different types of haste. So first, let's talk about Gear Haste, and that's pretty much what it is. It's just haste that's on your gear. It's any gear that actually says haste on it. So yeah, so let's jump into magic haste, and that's exactly what it sounds like. It is the effect haste that you get from magic spells. And there is the white magic that is haste and haste 2 that white mage and red mage get, but you can also get that same effect from other ways, from like blue mage or from summoner from blood packs, just as an example. Marches from bard are another form of magic haste, on top of that including mighty guard and brava, and yeah, that pretty much covers it. But then, like, you can get haste 2 from erratic flutter, which is a blue mage spell, but it is the same thing as haste 2. And then there is job ability haste, and this is haste that comes from job abilities. Hasso is one of the big ones that come from this. Haste Samba also contributes toward this. Last Resort, if you're having Aftermath up with Catastrophe, that counts. You could also count into it dual wield if you are dual wielding, and martial arts if you want to get into that if you are monk or puppet master using hand to hand. However, in terms of the whole dual wield system, I'm going to have a separate video on that. So this is just going to focus on haste itself. So now I actually want to talk about the cap, because there are caps on the different types of haste that you can get, and then there is an overall cap. So first, let's look at exactly what the haste cap is. Considering this is a computer game and it is actually using binary code, it is actually has a value of 1024. And to really understand that, you would have to understand binary, which is always in zeros or ones. 10 values of binary code will equal 1024, which is what the total haste cap is if you could actually hit 100%. However, you can't do that. Still, it is important to break it down this way so you can understand exactly what the cap values are. So, if we have 1024 and we break it up into quarters, so 25%, the value is actually 256, as opposed to if it was just 1000, where it would be 250. This is important to note because the equipment haste cap is actually 25%. And a lot of people will say, okay, so you want to have 25% gear to actually hit that gear haste cap for when you're going to go in and be a melee. And technically it is 25.6% because of how it does the math. It's weird. The true value for 25% is 256. So you really need 26% haste to hit the real cap, even though that last percentage point is only giving you 0.6 of the value that you should be getting out of the haste to truly hit the cap. So ideally, if you're trying to hit the gear haste cap, which any and all melees really should, you really want to be trying to aim to get 26% for the value on your gear. However, if you only hit 25, it's close enough, and quite often you might get overcapped with, say, like a bard and whoever's, you know, hasting you and say like a Zerg setup. But ideally, just to make sure that you're always at cap, you should try and aim for 26% in your gear. So now let's move on to the magic haste cap. And magic haste caps at a percentage value of 43.75%, or when you actually math it out, considering again we are in binary and we got the 1024, it really values out to a value of 448 points out of 1024. So this is where it gets a little bit complicated because haste values can be all over the place, especially in terms of gear. Like if you have a Geo trying to haste, depending on whether they have Idris or not, or how much Geomancy skill they actually have, can have haste anywhere from 2.4% all the way up to basically 41%. Bard kind of works in the same way. However, for the most part, you could typically think of a top-end Geo as basically having a haste 2, even though it's stronger than haste 2. I guess the best way to go over this is single haste from White Mage is 15%. Haste 2 is 30%. It's going to be the same for that from Garuda from Avatars doing Haska or Haska 2. Refueling is 10% haste, that's a Blue Mage spell. Animating Whale is 15%. Mighty Guard is 15%. Erratic Flutter, though, is 30%, just like Haste 2. Marches, again, it varies on the Bard's skill, plus also if they have Galahorn. Overall rule of thumb, again, if we're talking from a top-end Bard, typically your Advanced March is going to be higher than 15%, but not 20%. Victory March is going to be just under 30%. And Honor March is going to be, again, just over 15%. So if you have, say, Galahorn and you have your skill capped, if you're using Victory March and then either Advanced March or Honor March, you should be hitting Haste Cap just with those spells alone. And then the spell that Scholar gets access to in Bravo when its 2 hour is going is over 25%. And then the last thing we have is job abilities. So Hasso gives 10%. Haste Samba, depending on if you're subbing or your main dancer, is going to be 5 to 10%. Last Resort, whether you have it merited, plus gear and everything, is going to be somewhere between 15 and 25%. The overall delay cap from all forms of haste and delay reduction is 80%. So let's just do a quick overview of the caps just to try and make sure everyone has a good understanding of it. So again, because we're dealing with binary, the cap value, if you were to actually hit 100% haste, would be 1024. So you would really need 103% to hit 100% haste. The overall cap is 80% through any and all means of delay reduction. If we do the math on that, that comes out to basically 820. So we need 820 points to hit the actual delay cap for auto attacking. So for equipment, you want to hit a general cap of 26%. Magic Haste, if all your support's doing their job right, you should hit the cap there of 43.75%. So if we're hitting the gear cap and magic cap haste, that would put us at a total value of 704 out of the 1024, even though you can really only hit a cap of 80%, which is really basically 820. So if we are at the gear cap and magic cap, that would put us at a value of 704, having us 116, or basically 12% haste elsewhere off from hitting the delay cap. At that point, you would be relying on like Hasso and Haste Samba and Dual Wield to make up the difference to try and hit the total cap overall. So if I'm coming into a party where I'm playing support and have some sort of haste, I try and make sure the people are at 45% haste, which is, again, that's over what the cap actually is for Magic Haste, as it's only 43%. But I think it's really easy to try and focus on 45, especially since a lot of spells have the different values kind of at 15% or 30%. So by combining them, like say giving Haste 2 and then Victory March, bam, you know they're capped. Or if say you're giving Victory March and Honor March, then you can just give them Haste 1 and then they're at cap. So I try and look at it as even values, so you're looking at, like I said, 15 and 30%. That way, you know, in terms of values there, you only need to get to 45. So haste 2 and then anything else that gives 15, bam, you're good on the magic side. And then, of course, you should be utilizing whatever JAs you have. Like, if you are on Sam or subbing Sam, then you should be using Hasso. That I shouldn't even really need to be telling you that. You should be using that. Same thing, if you are dancer sub or dancer main, most of the time you're going to be wanting to use Haste Samba. I mean, I don't know anyone that really uses Drain Samba at level cap. You just don't do it. As for you being by yourself and making sure you are hitting the haste cap when you are, say, a melee and you're using trusts, I kind of do the same thing, whereas I summon a red mage who's going to give me haste 2, and that's 30% there, and then I go ahead and actually use both the bards, because one bard will sing one haste song and the other bard will sing the other haste song. Also, these haste songs are somewhat weaker, I'm sure. You typically need both of those along with haste 2 to hit the magic haste cap. One haste song along with, you know, haste 2 isn't enough from trust to hit the haste cap. So you really do need both bards and a red mage to make sure you're going to get there. And so that kind of covers haste and the auto attacking and hitting the delay cap. Now, haste will do one other thing besides just attack speed. It actually will reduce your recast time on magic spells. So it's very useful for mages, so that way they can be, you know, spamming out their spells depending on what spell they need to spam out more frequently by having higher haste. This caps at 50% though. Fast cast will help reduce it further, but then that's something else, and then again, that's getting into a whole nother subject. And just one last thing that I want to point out, and hopefully this will help people to improve on it. Oftentimes, I'm on tank, and we'll have a bard, and they will cap our magic haste on bard, and I will ask for magic haste, like the actual white mage or red mage spell for haste, and oftentimes they're like, you don't need it, you're already at haste cap. Well, when you are tank, often your buffs can get dispelled or stolen, or sometimes, you know, like if I'm on paladin and my MP drops and then the bard decides to use their single target job ability and then cast ballad on me, so I'm getting MP back. Well, now I just lost, you know, one of my March songs. So I understand for melees that you're not worried about giving them extra spells, but for your tank, overcap them on haste, because it really does make a big deal. Another example of this is even without Dispel, if I end up running into an enemy bard and then they put Elegy on me. If I was overcapped on haste, I'd still be at the cap because it'd be pushing out that slow. So you should honestly be hitting your tank with every haste ability you can, because I've also gotten yelled at before by having my MP zap. I'm not hasted, so it's taking a long time between flashes, and I can't really cure myself because I'm low MP and I'm not getting support, and then when I start losing hate because of that, they're yelling at me, oh, you're not doing a good job tanking. Well, if you did a good job supporting your tank, I could do a much better job holding hate and tanking. So, just since we're on the subject of haste, I would just say, you know, put it out there as like a PSA, over cap your tank with haste. Even if they're already at cap, throw them another one. The only exception I can see not that is if you are 100% sure that the tank isn't gonna get any of their haste effects removed, and you're sure that they're not gonna get any slow effects from any of the mobs, considering they have the mob's direct attention. That's all I have to really say on this subject. Stay tuned for me going over dual wield, as that's a whole nother, you know, big subject to talk about and very important, since a lot of jobs utilize dual wield and you want to make sure you're utilizing it properly to get maximum TP benefits and attack speed. So we will be going over that in the next video. Thank you guys for tuning in, thank you for supporting the channel, and may you have success in all you do.